what that is for really large clients. They're going to pay us anywhere between 10 and 20,000 to do a pretty substantial digital market research report and persona development report. And so we'll spend anywhere between 1 and 3 months, digging into their competition, into their data, into their historical marketing. We'll interview their customers. We'll interview their sales team, marketing team, executive team. And then we produce this report that says, okay, here's what we learned. This is what we, recommend as a marketing strategy based on your goals. And then we would write a proposal. In my experience, I don't do that very often because it's usually huge whale enterprise clients that would need something like that.
But you're getting upfront monies to do your R&D though, right?
Only for those giant, really big enterprise companies. Most clients, that's pretty painful for them.
Mm-hmm.
They want results right away. They want a website right away. They want to start launching marketing campaigns right away. So when we tell them, hey, for that, don't do that science that I'm writing SOWs for. If it's for a website, there's some frank conversations had up front, and we do a little, when I say we, me, do a little digging into their existing website. So I just write the SOW based on what I think we're going to need, and then if there's language in our SOWs that basically says we don't know what we don't know. And if something comes up that, we didn't account for, we'll write a separate project approval sheet for that. And we do that a lot.
So I guess let me ask you this then. So let's say you get into, let's say, a website build, right? And Joe, to answer your question, yes. The research and discovery is what we're talking about. So let's say they say, okay, let's go. You go into your design process, right? Which is where you're going to do your mock-ups. Where are you actually doing your scope of work at? Because this is one thing I've been bubbling around the last week or so on with trying to redo ours. Because on one hand, I want to make sure I have every single bit of information in that SOW. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to do that if we don't have the design phase locked in. Because who knows? I mean, a different design could mean a lot of different things. So that's where I'm bubbling around at, because I want to have that SOW line by line by line by line. Now, with some of our partners, it's okay because by the time it comes to us, they've already done the mock-ups. They've already done all of the R&D. They hand it to us, say, here's what we're going to build. And we just do it, right? So it makes it simple. But on some of these others where it's a little bit looser, I have one project I'm scoping right now in particular, which has pretty much already agreed to the deal. But I need them to sign off on a UI interface for how they're going to filter and search and stuff, because depending on which design direction we go, it affects the hours into it.
Development time, yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm bubbling. I'm just not sure if I need to just charge up front for the R&D, consider the design process, the mock-up process as part of the R&D, or I don't know. I'm not sure which
Well,
way
I
to
think,
go with
for one, it's not apples to apples. I think your business model and process are probably different than ours. Our SOWs, I was surprised to learn when I first started working here that, we certainly cover our bases all over the place. We're talking about the timeline of the project, and we're letting the client know that it's contingent on their ability to be timely and get feedback, all these things. And if we go past that project timeline, they have to pay us hourly after that. But as far as the deliverables go, I don't know. I don't want to use the word vague, but it's actually pretty short. We say things like, we're going to design up to X number of templates. Doesn't mean we will hit exactly that number. Doesn't mean we won't go over that number. And really, what if we do go over that number? It's up to me as the project manager to make a determination. All right, do I need to charge you for this, or can we rob Peter to pay Paul? Is there something we're not doing somewhere else? So we're pretty fluid, especially in marketing, but also a little bit in website. And our process has R&D built in. So the very first thing we do, it's really, we call it user profile development, but it's kind of related to personas. But basically, we do some research, figure out who your users are, what their buying cycle looks like, and then we try to map out a site map based on what we assume their buyer journey to be. So we're trying to move them from I'm a first-time visitor to I'm going to convert on a form to I'm going to become a customer with the web pages. And we present that to the client. So it's actually a kind of a designed out thing in addition to the sitemap that we present to the client. We get approval on that. Then we go into wireframes. We get approval on that. Then we go into mock-ups, and then full-on design and development. But for the most part, we've kind of set up front what we think the limits of the project are going to be. And we're very much dictating to the client, this is what we recommend. And then, of course, if the client comes back and say, well, I've got to have this certain da-da-da-da page or certain whatever section of the website, that's fine. We try to have those conversations prior to the SOW. If they come up in the middle of the project, we almost always certainly just create a little separate project approval sheet for them to sign, and they pay extra on top of that.
See, I think our SOWs are probably more along the lines of what yours are in the past, and that's what I'm trying to tighten down, because before ours were a little bit ambiguous, and there was a lot of room for the interpretation side of things, and that's what I was trying to get away with. Here, I'll show you something.
Well,
here.
I think, yeah, show it, but I think the biggest difference is we have very specific people we want to work with. And during the sales process, we're qualifying and making a determination. Like, for instance, I just had a company, they're huge. I can't remember exactly what they do, but they came to us wanting a WordPress. Like, they would have been probably right up your alley, but they came to us wanting WordPress website with all kinds of bells and whistles, and I turned them away because that's not what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're probably more apt to take on almost every project, whereas we're really picky. We try to just do HubSpot websites if we can help it.
Right. Well, I mean, so if you look at this, I mean, this is kind of what you were saying you guys are doing, probably along the same lines, where yeah, we're kind of throwing everything in here that's been discussed, but there's not a lot of description on these. We know we're going to do a top bar, login bar, upgrade page, blah, 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 blah. But where we run into troubles, and particularly in those types of projects you just mentioned, is we get stuff like, well, we just like we had an example for an about page, right? It was in the SOW. We had all the pages listed out for the site, about page, this page, that page, blah blah blah. Well, then they threw in half a dozen sub pages under the about page, right? And just in their mind thought that was okay.
Right.
And I said, well, the SOW doesn't have those in there. Clearly, it just says an about page. She says, well, I thought that was a section. I didn't know that meant that was just literally a page. It's like, well, it does say page, but, just crap like that.
We've actually gotten away from our proposals when I first got here looked more similar to yours. You're coming from the perspective of a developer, so yours are quite a bit more technical than what ours ever were. But
Right.
Ours did used to say, you're going to have a home page, you're going to have an about page, you're going to have, a mega nav, and it would list things out. We've gotten away from that, and now we say things like up to 50 pages, up to 20 templates.
See, we can't do that, and we've had this conversation too, as far as basing things on a page or something, because for us, a lot of what we do is custom development, and
Right.
so there might be 100 hours to put in on one page
Yeah, and see,
for
not
custom functionality.
I mean, and if there is something like, for instance, HubSpot just now got database functionality, believe it or not. And it's still pretty in its infancy. So when we have a request from a customer to build a website in HubSpot that needs something like a filterable table, which is pretty straightforward with every other platform out there, even hand coding, it's a bit of a project in HubSpot. So we do try to account for those things. So if there's any kind of API integration, advanced functionality, calculator, sort, filter, anything dynamic going on, we try to discover that stuff in the sales conversation and include that as a line item in the SOW and charge for it in the SOW. If it comes up later, like, oh, we really needed this, that's where those project approval sheets come in.
All right, appreciate it. I was just kind of curious since it's something I've been beating back and forth here. I don't know. Joe asked, I think, a little bit ago, how you determine your buyer journey.
So I'm pretty lucky in that I've got a team of people that gets to help me. So I've got, a UX designer, I've got a brand journalist, copywriter, and then myself. But primarily where we start with that is we take some time, usually the brand journalist takes some time to interview their customers, preferably, but at a minimum, interview their internal stakeholders, so the sales and marketing and executive teams. And what we're looking for there is, who is your buyer? How do they buy? How long does the buy cycle take? What are the questions that they ask during the buy cycle? And when we do persona development, we go even farther as to like, where do they hang out online? What keywords do they type in search to address their pain points? What are their pain points? And we'll even make recommendations for content to create that would resonate with them. But it's really just educated and not really guessing, but just based on our experience and what we've learned through those interviews, we then come up with a strategy for, using the website to help move them through the funnel. And it sounds more complicated than it is. I mean, really, what it just means is it's something that everybody should be doing, whether they have interviewed customers or not, is putting CTAs everywhere, putting forms everywhere. The mistake that everybody used to make, people are getting better at it now, is the only form you'd find on their website would be the contact us page. You can like quadruple conversions. I have that telecom company I was telling you about that we did their website for them. We increased conversions on their website. I was just looking at it today by 211%. We didn't do any marketing for them. All we did was we put a form on almost every single product page. Just made it easier for people to fill stuff out, to get in touch. So,
were you just doing call to action forms, or were you doing gated forms, like gated content forms?
So we don't do content for them because they're a B2C telecom company, so they're selling cable and internet and telephone.
Right. Right.
So we would just they have multiple service areas, and then so for each service area they have a services page, which is basically a product page. Talks about all their bundles and their packages and whatever. And at the bottom of every one of those pages, we have a form. And one of the questions in the form is, are you a current customer looking to upgrade? Or are you looking to become a new customer? So you can differentiate, new business versus upsell business. But just that tiny little thing, change things for them overnight.
Sure. So, well, yeah, and that's a big thing that I've always got to beat into people too, is you got to have that CTA everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the point? I mean, we're not in the information business. We're in the business of making sales or getting appointments or whatever it is. So Well, let's see. What's Joe saying here? Nothing. Um, hey Joe, how's things going? I guess on your side. Typey, typey, typey. When it comes to dentist, good. Okay. Well, that's kind of his main focus right now anyway, so that's a good thing. Why would I get another W-2 from these guys? I'm sorry. I've done some work for this headhunter company in the past, this Creative Circle, and I just got a W-2 from those guys a couple days ago for $40. And apparently they just sent me another one, and I don't think I even did any work for these guys in the last year and a half. But I don't know. Anyway, so I don't know. I guess on our side, as far as what we've been focused on the last week, and we need to keep focusing on is just more of the same, getting these proposals tight and these SOWs tight, and we just last year did a lot of free work that I don't want to do again, and it's the exact same. They sent me duplicates. Anyway, just I want to say we probably did about 60 grand in free hours in the last year.
Ouch.
Just because shit wasn't tight in the scope. There was too much ambiguity. There was too much back and forth, and we just ate it. I'm not doing that this year. There's no more of that. I mean, that's too much money to lose. And a couple of the partners we work with are kind of, I mean, everybody gets it. And honestly, some of these guys are kind of just winging it themselves. And I think with us making them put processes in place themselves, it helps everybody involved. But some of them are kicking and screaming. I mean, one of them just a little bit ago, I sent him a copy of our new proposal for him if he wanted to kind of copy it to use between him and his client. And he said, well, I don't have time to fill out all these things. I was like, well, dude, that's exactly the point. That's why this is how we get in these problems, because you don't have the time to ask these questions and to get these answers. And then you pass this to us, and then we're stuck with these questions and answers, and nobody knows until we're already dedicated to the build. And then who eats the fucking cost because you don't have time to do it? We fucking do. And so I basically said, I don't care what you do between you and the end client. That's your deal. But between us and him, we're going to have that SOW in place. And if you don't have the answers to those questions, we're just not going to build it. But,
well, I mean, it sounds like you need a section that just speaks to what you're not going to do, or even speaks to, here's the estimated project timeline. And if we go outside of that, you're going to, because that's what we do.
yeah, and we do. And we have a schedule section. So we have, first it goes through the process, what to expect, right? This is the R&D, blah, 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 design, development, QA.
I mean, schedule section, does it say if we go outside this schedule, you owe me money?
Yeah. So then we have an actual schedule. So we go the process, we go to the SOW, and then we go into the schedule with actual due dates and it line items the due dates for everything for us and everything for the partner, right? So copy is going to be all copy is going to be provided by partner due date. All copy that we're responsible for is going to be provided due date. Same with the assets, so on and so forth. That way, there's always everything there. But then what we say, obviously, overscope is just going to get another scope. It's going to get an addendum to that scope. But then we also call out where if they don't meet their due dates, if they go 30 days past their due dates on copy or assets and stuff like that, and it's holding us up, we put their project on hold. And for us to bring that back out of on hold, we need to rework a new schedule, and it's going to get put in the back of the line of all of our other projects, because that's the other problem we've had is these son of a bitches go dead for weeks at a time. and then they come back with stuff, and then we go back to build it, right? And then we end up pushing other projects back because now our timeline's extended. So we call that out, and they're going to pay us $500 to bring that out of an on hold status. Now, if they go 90 days, we say that we're going to consider that basically dead, and we're going to take it down off our staging server and everything like that. We're not going to keep paying for resources for a project that's 90 days over their schedule. And then if they want us to bring that back at some point, and then they're going to pay us $1,000.
Yeah.
Just because I'm not doing this shit anymore. Where honestly, for some reason last year, the first half of the year went really well. Everything seemed to go pretty smooth, and then somewhere around June, July-ish, it just flipped on its ass, and it seemed like everything was just like pulling teeth from everybody. And
Your SOWs already sound so much more detailed than the ones we work with. So I wonder if it's not so much an SOW problem as it is, because I get in the same rut, and it always seems to happen towards the middle or end of the year. You get so busy with all the projects that you're working on.
mm-hmm.
It's too hard to, sometimes it feels quicker and easier to just do whatever instead of writing up a separate project approval sheet or arguing with the client. And, I'm wondering if that may be kind of what's going on.
A little bit. We had twofold there because we got slammed, honestly, with a couple really big projects. And where everything started to go south was one of the projects we were working on. SOWs got mixed up, and I didn't catch it in time. They actually... So one of our partners sends us purchase orders after we do the SOW and all that stuff. Well, they made the purchase order on a defunct project that we decided not to do, which was scoped like a tenth of the hours that were supposed to be on the actual legit SOW. And then all of a sudden we started getting crap, getting sent to us for stuff that I've never heard of before. And I had a couple other guys working on the project, so I wasn't doing all of the day-to-day stuff. And then all of a sudden, I see this stuff, and I go, wait a minute, I don't remember that ever being in the SOW. I pull the SOW out, send it to them, and say, what's going on here? This isn't anything like here. And they're like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't even the right SOW. They were going to pay us pennies on the dollar for this thing. And so everything went sideways. And then from there, it snowballed into... Now we're slammed, and I got really lax on some of what we consider smaller WordPress projects, and so we weren't doing full SOWs or SOWs at all on a couple of them, and that bit us in the ass hard. Because, I fall into that trap going, well, it's a small project, and who really cares? It's just informational, blah, blah, blah. And then it turns out, no, it's not.
Right.
There's no SOW that's realistic to look at and say, so, and some of it is expectations that we've kind of allowed some of these guys to do this to us too, where they can just kind of stuff in on us, and we're like, it's just a few more hours here. Fine, we'll do it.
That's what I was going to say, and that's part of the reason that Kuno, the company I work for, turns away so much business is because we want to get out of that commodity mindset, And
the problem is it's not really the partners we're working with that are in that commodity mindset, and that's another challenge for that business model, for that side of this business, that white label ship.
Right.
Because we don't have control of that end client, right? It's that partner's responsibility to contain that client and to do that.
Truly, the partner is your client,
Right, exactly. And while we can kind of manage them, we have no contact really usually with the end client, very seldom anyway. But I promise you, those clients are viewing this as a commodity because they're not setting that value up for those guys when they're doing their proposals and their pitches. They're just giving us the bill and saying, here, go build it.
Which would be nearly impossible for them to do, because if they don't have the expertise to execute on it, how can they really sound authoritative?
Right. And that's where we're trying to, and that's one of the reasons we're really making these proposals and stuff, because what I want to happen is I want these partners to take our discovery questions, our proposals now, and see what we're doing, so they can turn around and manage their clients better up front. Because if they can manage that stuff themselves up front better, it doesn't trickle down to us. Because then it always becomes these guys don't know, they're not developers, right?
Right.
The clients start feeding them pie in the sky nonsense. Like just yesterday, I had one say,
Salespeople.
Can you put this paid font in along with this web safe font, along with another font, all in 3 lines, just so I can see an example of the three?" I'm like, "Fuck, are you fucking crazy? A, I'm not paying $200 for a stupid paid font just so you can see what it looks like, and B, I'm not doing that because that's more development time."
Right. For something that you're never ultimately going to use. And
Yeah.
I don't know that this is something that you can do. You and I have talked about this before. Um, but this is the model that we've moved to at Kuno. There are no more salespeople. He fired them all. I was the only one that he kept, and the only reason he kept me is because I can do everything else. So he has me doing marketing strategy and stuff. But the whole sales team is gone. So what that looks like is now when a project comes in, a lead comes in, depending on what they're asking for, they get tossed to me or to a developer or to our SEO experts, or you know what I mean? So the people who are having the conversations with the client and writing the proposal are ultimately the ones who are going to end up doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
So because of our business model where we're not really just trying to take on everybody, it and there's no commissions really. So the person having these conversations and ultimately writing the proposal and doing the work, you know, it's very easy for us to turn people away because if we're thinking, shit, I don't want to do this, you know, we're the ones who are going to have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's working out a lot better because the SOWs are better, the conversations with the client are better, the project runs smoother. We're not getting as much business as we're getting, but we're getting higher quality business that then for us will turn into a marketing service client.
Right. Well, and honestly, we're doing something similar though too, and that's why we made our discovery questions more in depth. And we require these partners to ask these now. If they don't send us the answers to these questions, we're not going to build it. And
Right.
if we don't like the answers to these questions, we're not going to build it. Because another big issue I have with some of these smaller WordPress projects is sometimes the clients want to be fucking designers, and they're not. And then we end up having to build absolute crap, and I don't want to do that anymore. You know, like we have one right now that keeps trying to send us these old school bubbly fucking help buttons and shit like that for a really nice uh flat designed site. It is like, dude, this if we put this button here, it's just absolute crap. It's going to stick out like a sore thumb. Um, and I got to get out of that. I don't want clients that think they're the designer. If you're a designer, you just go fucking build it yourself.
Right.
But yeah, that's the thing. I mean, and last year we did tighten down on that too, as far as what projects we would actually take. I mean, there's been a few of them that we've turned down just because either the client's an asshole or it didn't make sense or something. But I don't know. It's really more for us at this point. It's just really more about these guys need to have all their ducks in a row before they send it to us, because that's the other problem we've had is they want to trickle shit to us. And
Right.
so we end up with projects on the books for 4 months, and that's what we're trying to kill with that being Nazis on the due dates and stuff. Because most of these little WordPress sites, honestly, we could bang them out in 20 hours if we had all the images, all the copy, what design we have to follow here. If we had all those in place when we sit down to do the build, 20 hours, fucking done, start to finish. But then they trickle stuff to us, right? 2 weeks later, okay, here's some more copy for 2 more pages. 2 weeks later, oh, here's some images. 2 weeks later, oh, hey, can we change the design totally? You know,
Yeah.
and so what should be a couple day build goes into 4 months, and you know, screw that. I'm not doing that anymore. If you don't have shit and figured out, no more of this. Keywords that trigger me now are, we'll figure it out when we get it.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, that kind of crap, right? Well, we're not quite sure which way we want to go on the design yet, but we'll let you know. You know, that kind of stuff. You know, by the time you come to me, you need to have those things figured out.
Yeah. And see, that's the biggest difference between what you do and what we do is we tell you what the design is going to be.
Oh, we will do that, and that is
Well, we
something we
actually do
do.
100% of the time. Like we don't
Right.
ever. Matter of fact, I've had clients who've like sent me 7 URLs of other websites. Like, I want this page from this website, and I'm like, see you later. We're not going to do that.
Yeah, and honestly, it just depends which partner too, because we work with some partners that are actual design agencies. That's what they do, right? They just don't have the dev chops in house, and that's where we kind of step in. And so they send us really great PSDs, and we just build them. It's pretty good for us as developers because we don't have to do any fucking design. It's already all laid out. We just got to put it into practice. But then we have these other ones where they do exactly what you just said. I'm like, okay, what are we going to do for design? Are we doing the design? Blah, blah, blah. And they go, well, we like this one site, but we like above the fold on this. And we like below the fold on this site. And we
Right.
like the inner page on this site. You know what always happens with those when we do that? They always change their minds halfway through. And we end up redesigning it all anyway.
Well, and I think that's the reason why we have that large user profile, user journey thing up front, because then it's like our clients are much less likely to ever try to force feed us stuff like that, because we have proven that we have a strategy behind our design, whereas theirs is just, I think this looks pretty.
Well, and we won't do that either. I mean, honestly, we'll come up with a cohesive plan with call to actions and stuff going, okay, well, you like that site, sure. We'll have a full page hero or whatever, sure. I kind of let a lot of that just kind of blow by me. Um, but what we really need to do that we've been lacking on to is a lot of these smaller projects uh, where they do that kind of stuff. We haven't been doing any kind of mock-ups for them for the design. They just say go build it like this, and there's a lot of ambiguity in that. I think that's another thing we're going to start forcing is even for those little projects like that when they say, well, we kind of like this site, we kind of like that site, we're going to charge them up front for R&D and to do some basic design mock-ups to figure out which design direction we're going to go first before we actually do commit to a project. But then I think what that'll help us kill is when they sign off on that mock-up, we can't let them do that shit anymore. With that, oh well, well, let's change the design now to this. We go, no, you signed off on this fucking mock-up, so happy to do it, but not for the same amount of money.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's my rant and ramble. So, I think we're gonna have a short meeting today. Looks like it's just
Yeah,
the three
I've,
of us.
I've got to actually hop. I've got a 2 o'clock that I need to get ready for.
Joe said his discovery questionnaire is 15 pages long. Holy shit!
Yeah, he says he charges $1,000 for it. Good job, Joe.
Nice. What are you figuring out what to eat for breakfast? And they love it. They love paying him $1,000.
Yeah.
All right. We order lunch. Well, it's an expensive fucking lunch, but if it works,
Right.
it's really insightful for that. Well, Joe, what you're talking about though is it's probably more of a strategy session than it is just just a straight discovery. Yeah. Which makes sense, and that's worth $1,000. But all right, guys, let's call it. Let's get out of here. I got stuff to do anyway, so catch you again next week.
All right, man. You guys have a good weekend.
All right, see you.
Yes.